where is there a black community? Where is it?
I think that there's a more of a systemic issue with our, I mean, something that's bigger than something that we're going to fix today.
That we're so busy trying to reconcile with the other and trying to be like the other that we have not properly reconciled with ourselves.
The teardown of me during my campaign and how negative it was, it reminded me that, you know, just campaigning itself is exactly what our African-American men are going through on a day-to-day.
We need to take charge. We need to teach our sons to become men.
So we talked about what was going on in the community and a solution to fix, you know, what's going on in the community. What I want to get to, is there a community? And if there is a community, where is that community? Is it in Pasadena? Is it in Inglewood? Is it in Los Angeles? Is it downtown? Is it even in California?
It's on Facebook. It's virtual.
Yeah.
It's virtual now. There's no actual geographical black community, not in Los Angeles, that I can think of. It's all virtual.
The community is, the community to me is more Hispanics now. It's like we're pushed out and we're scattered all over the place now. I don't know, I'm with you. Maybe it's on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Latino community, every quote unquote traditional black community is now 70–80% Latino. Right. Compton is more Latino than black.
Right.
And now with that, there's more white Americans buying property in Compton now,
right, and
in Inglewood,
right,
areas that were black.
Well, you know, not to answer for the Reverend, the pastor here, but I still believe that we have a community, and I believe our community is a spiritual community now. It may not look like the old community where we had businesses and seamstress and I mean just flourishing, but one thing I would say about the African American community as a whole, we've stayed very strong with our faith and with our religion. And so I think that our community is still within the church, and I think that that's where we could probably grasp a lot of them. We could also probably grasp, I think, a lot of them in our schools, like we mentioned, education. So, but I think our community right now still belongs and is stayed true and faithful to our churches.
So the church being the center,
I think, still,
and the church being what is the community.
The only common denominator as of right now.
Yeah.
But growing up in the South, there are still pockets of the real black community. In South Carolina, which is actually a major population of African Americans, there is a community, the Gullah Island, is a distinct and all black community. They have their own dialect. They have their own shops. They have their own businesses.
Is that the Geechee?
There's even a children's show called Gullah
Island, which is based on a fact. It's a
awesome
fact.
Show.
You know, I believe also that the historically black colleges and universities are communities. That you may not find them as easily as you can in the Latino community, but again, as we spoke about, it's because we are such a small part of the population in America that you have to find the community. It's just not going to stand out, but there are pockets around the country. I still believe there are genuine black communities, but they're just not being showcased. You have to look deep for them.
That's great. So we said church, being a community. We also said virtual, meaning Facebook or Twitter. But also I think what you hit on, Reverend, is the HBCU community. is very, very heavy with, you know, I know out here in Los Angeles is FAMU and Howard University. You know, those two communities right there are really strong, and they definitely make their presence felt.
I think I mean, well, I'm just kind of chime in, and we're thinking of where the community is like throughout the United States, but I would say for African Americans, I still think Atlanta is still a vibrant place for business owners, CEOs. I mean, Atlanta is
and the Carolinas.
Yes, the Carolinas, of course, the Carolinas. Absolutely. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So now with that, how can we build those communities? What does it take? What does it take to build those communities back up?
So there's still black businesses, but we need to support our own black businesses as opposed to not going to our local black businesses. I think that's a start to support our black businesses, because black businesses in turn hire the most amount of African Americans, and small businesses in general hire the most amount of most amount of employees. I mean, the United States is based on small businesses.
Right.
You know, not saying that all black businesses are small businesses, but there still are black businesses.
I think a lot of the black businesses hire. They're very diverse in their hiring process than any other business that I've run across or seen before.
About according to a couple studies I've read about, and maybe because I'm a business owner as well, but about 68% of businesses owned by African Americans will employ 68% of them employ African American as their 80% labor force. So roughly, if you own a black business, 68% of the time, there's going to be at least 6 out of 10 people working there will be
maybe a cousin, maybe a friend, a friend of a friend.
But we need that.
Absolutely,
right? I mean, that's what our community needs. Our community needs that. We need to get back to some of the basics, and I think that's what we talked about in the beginning was our self-worth and also supporting one another. That's what we need. Really, the black community should start with just supporting one another.
Absolutely, I think that's the most important is being able to support one another in business, but just in general.
Right. That's what I mean. That's what I meant when I said support one another. That's just in general.
Absolutely.
We need to be our own hype men, so to speak, or when we validate each other. This is when others can see our self-worth. It's like, I know this brother has a great gift to give to the community. So if I go in front of the community, be like, man, y'all don't know what this brother has.
Right.
He's got this amazing gift.
Right.
So it's how we sell each other.
There you go.
And big up the next man and really, boost up your brother. Like, hold your brother on a pedestal. That's your brother. You know, you hold your brother on a pedestal. That's going to allow him to build another pedestal to hold you up on, and then to hold the youth in the future. So, a big part of it is we have to validate each other. We have to know our self-worth, know our brother's worth, and validate that.
What Pedro said is we have to uplift each other.
That's right.
We have to celebrate each other. If this brother gets elected, I feel like I got elected.
Yes.
If this brother makes a painting that sells for $1 million, I feel like I sold that painting with him for $1 million. And that's what it's about. It's celebrating in each other's victories. That makes a big difference. And that goes a long way.
And I'd like to add on, and even being there for our defeats. And our shortcomings. It's like, we're not always going to win everything. We're not always going to do the best. But there's no need to tear the next man down. It's like, oh, brother, you didn't make it this time. Well, what can we do to make it for next time?
Right.
Whoa, look at this place. Where are we?
Just be patient, and I'll show you.
Your suit changed.
Follow me to a place I know where there ain't no pain, ain't no sorrow. It's a place to be if your skin is brown. I'm talking about Negro Town.
Negro Town? What, like Atlanta?
Almost. Now be quiet while I sing.
Negro Town, you can walk the street without getting stopped, harassed, or beat. And there's always a cab when you need to get around.
And they always stop.
In Negro Town.
Is that Jerome Bettis?
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know, wherever you are.
I'm a firm believer in do for self. You know, don't look for the next man to take care of you or to give you something. You know, if you have issue with a former slave owner or those people, then why would you go to those people for a handout? Like, you know, one of the something that a question that's always put up is why does the black man love the devil? Because he gives him nothing. So because he gives us nothing, we continuously give him our love. And what is love? Love is understanding. So we're steady trying to understand someone who gives us nothing. So why are we still asking for nothing when we should just get it ourselves, make it ourselves, do it for ourselves? Just the five of us here, I mean, we have enough resources between us as men to really create something, a business, a production, whatever it may be. We have enough just between us five to do something. And if we take every group of 5 men and let's create a project, let's do something.
Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and I think we find those strengths and those weaknesses, and then we fill in those gaps.
And part of that is, you know, it's the education piece that we've mentioned multiple times. It's not that because I make $1 million, I got to move out of my community.
Right.
Because you make $1 million, you should help someone else in your community, and you shouldn't be leaving your community. That's why our communities. That's why we don't have a community that exists. Because when we made it, we
move out, so, and feel like we made it.
We feel like we made it because now we're like, oh, now I'm living where everybody else
building another community instead of building your own community.
You know, Karis once said something a while back in a song. He was like, you know, gangsters, real gangsters, like back in the days, if they made a bunch of money, they built a hospital in their own community. So when they got shot, they had a hospital they could go to. You know what I'm saying? Or they invested in the police department. Not saying that crime and law should go hand in hand, but ultimately it's about where you put your investment. That's gonna benefit you later on. You know, we have all these rappers and athletes and all these people with all this money, and I've been saying this for so long. I still don't understand why there's not
scholarships.
Not even a scholarship. There's enough money. Just name a rapper, Ludacris, any of them. Just one rapper has enough money to start a music school. Why doesn't that exist? Why? Why don't we have a real training center. Michael Jordan, with all the money he makes on sneakers, he should be ashamed of himself that he has not yet opened some kind of school to put back into the community that's making him millions of dollars off sneakers.
Yeah. That's part of the
$3 a pair to
Right.
make, but then charge you $150. So, but with all that money he's got, it's really shameful that it's not being put back in. I'm not just pointing at Michael.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them across the board. Russell, a bunch of them. And of course, they make their contributions here for their tax write-off and thing like that. But how many of them are actually doing something that's making a difference in the community?
I think for some of them, nobody really never showed them what to do with their money.
That's the education.
Right.
That's the education part.
Back to education.
And what we don't understand is that when we speak of uplift is not just a social dynamic, it is a mental dynamic. One of the fascinating things about slavery was the slave owners didn't mind freeing the slaves because they said you can leave the plantation but we'll still keep you locked up in your mind. So even though they freed the slaves in 1865, it took some slaves 5 to 10 years to even leave the plantation because they could not see themselves as being free. When we see ourselves as truly free and liberated, that's when we can begin
liberation.
We are still living in a post-slavery mentality that says, I'm going to do everything I can to please who I think is my superior. So I'm going to keep the other ones down so that I can make it to the big house. It doesn't matter where they are as long as I am accepted by the ones who are in the big house. That's why there's no uplift. That's why there's no investment, because we're all chasing to please someone who doesn't care about us to begin with.
Right. I think you guys have
pleasing someone who wants to be there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah. I think
they hate us because they want to be us, and we hate ourselves because we want to be like them.
Exactly. And I think that, you know, everybody had touched on an important part of rebuilding the community. And what we need to rebuild the community is having knowledge of self, having knowledge of economics, group economics, what we need to do once we acquire money.
Economic literacy.
There it is.
We have nobody teaching that to our youth.
Right.
There's no community center or school, something where our youth can learn what does it actually mean to have a capital gain.
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Our kids don't know that, and not just kids. A lot of us adults don't understand that verbiage, and it's like without that, you really can't do too much.
Right.
It's generational wealth.
It's generational
wealth. Absolutely.
Not mentioned tonight, but you know, it's just a topic that everybody talks about is gentrification. Is it really gentrification, or is it a miseducation of a whole community?
I think it's miseducation.
Miseducation.
I'm going to say miseducation. I mean, because if the people who are living in a community for 30, 40 years don't have the education of, hey, maybe I should buy this property, or maybe I should make an investment so that I can buy this property, then when the people they've been renting from for 30, 40 years, when their grandchildren want to move back into that neighborhood or into that nice house and that, what's going to stop them?
Well, a lot of them are, there's a big percentage of them that are actually homeowners that, you know, the mother passed away and now the children.
And now the children have it.
Well, my parents bought this for $50,000. I, you know, want to cash out and make $1 million off this house. So they want to do that. I mean, and that's their prerogative. But I think if they understood, you know, how you could take equity out of that home and invest back into your community.
Right.
By doing that, you could uplift everybody, and then your that equity actually turns into. I mean, you could turn your property into even a $2 million home.
Right.
But we gotta first start with making sure that we understand what the word equity means.
Yeah. So it goes
we hear these words, but the average blue collar black man in the streets, he doesn't really understand equity. Like, what does that mean to him?
So once again, it's education. Oh, got you. Once again, it's education. Is the key to everything, pretty much. Like I said, we talked about the community, what's going on in the community, the problems, what can be done to fix those problems. Is there a community? What does a community look like? We identified that. But also what we can do to build up that community. So I just want to get from each and every one of you guys, you know, 30 seconds or less, as far as just with everything that we've talked about, going forward, what we need to do. Your closing statements on, your closing remarks on community.
Our community is a beautiful community, a very well diverse community, and I think that spiritually we're there. I think that we could do a better job at educating our whole community when it comes to financial education, when it comes to just basic day-to-day education. Also, it's important that we make sure that we're being part of it. It is a community, and that's starting everywhere. You know, like we mentioned in the brief remarks, when it comes to police, when it comes to represent your representative. I mean, they're your representative, not your leader. They represent you. I'm a representative. I don't lead the people. I just lead their wants as I'm working. So I think really, you know, education, and also you know, look out for those young people. Go to a school, get involved. I think that all of us, I mean, as a city council member, even as a school board member, I visited our schools, especially our public schools, and I sat down with all of our children, because these children aren't only children, but they are the future of America, and we can't forget that. So thank you.
Pedro.
Just adding on with what Tyrone was saying, it's really the core issue is education. Educating ourselves, educating each other, and validating each other. I think, you know, bigging up the next man and letting them see his self-worth. You know, sometimes we don't see it until a friend or someone else says, man, you're really good at that. You know, reach out. You know, you see someone shining, let them know you're shining, man. You're doing a good job. That one little boost is going to do a lot more than you can imagine. It's going to do more than not giving that boost. Sometimes that one little boost is what's going to keep somebody persevering and striving. And I think when we know that we have our people on our side, it just gives us that fuel and that energy and that strength that we need to just move to the next level and raise the bar.
Eric.
I'm going to take all this information we talked about tonight, take it back to my community, and share it with each kid that I know, one kid at a time.
The biggest threat to our community is not that we're weak, it's that we're powerful and we don't know it. We have to liberate our minds. We have to liberate each other. We have to, as my brothers have spoken tonight, we have to uplift each other. But that can only be done when we first know who we are and how powerful we are. We have to let that power from within come out.
Well, there you guys have it. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and definitely, as we say, chop it up. Definitely want to thank Mr. Tyrone Hampton, definitely Eric Bailey, Pedro Belugo, and also Reverend Brandon Fisher. Thank you guys for stopping by and, like I said, chopping it up, man. Very good dialogue. Some jewels, some nuggets have been laid here tonight, and I appreciate that.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.